Hello and Shalom. My name is Rabbi Stuart Weinblatt, and I am the chairman of the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition. It is the independent collective voice of Zionist rabbis, and we are pleased to present today's call with Herbert Bloch and with Michal Kababia. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's good.
To help provide an opportunity for people to learn what the American Zionist, what the World Zionist Congress is all about and this election. Many of us have already received a number of emails asking and inquiring about the Congress and the election and so on. And so today's a chance to really learn more about it. We'll be posting this on YouTube, on our website, the AZM, American Zionist Movement. Will be making it available as well. So let me introduce our guest. We have with us today Michal Kababia, who is the representative of the World Zionist Executive in North America since 2023. She served on the Jewish Agency's Board of Governors from 2018 until 2023. And then also we have as our other panelist or speaker today, Herb Bloch. Herb is the executive director of the American Zionist Movement, known as the AZM, and he served in that role since March of 2017. He came to the AZM after a long career in Jewish communal life and public service. So thank you both for joining us today, and we're looking forward to diving right in and learning more about the this particular election. Let me just mention that I found that in a conversation with rabbis, even who pretty much know inside book baseball, many of them were really not 100% sure what the World Zionist Congress is, what it does, and so on. So let me just start off, Michal, if you could begin by telling us a little something about the history, the origin of the World Zionist Congress. This is not the first rodeo, correct? When did it start, and what does it do?
All right, thanks. First, I want to apologize. I have laryngitis, so I'm going to be kind of very brief and then let Herbert take over. So that's first of all. So the World Zionist Congress was founded by Theodor Herzl in 1897. He founded the Congress to convene together Jews from all over the world. He invited Jewish leadership from about 17 different countries, about 208 delegates, in order to bring forward the idea of creating the state of Israel. Um, and so he convened the Congress, and from the Congress, the first decision of the Congress, one of the first decisions was to create the World Zionist Organization. And the World Zionist Organization, it's the umbrella organization of the Zionist movement. And it includes organizations. Herbert will speak later about exactly what it includes. And the Congress is the policy-making body of the WZO, and it decides once every 5 years it convenes and decide the delegates decide how to spend $1 billion each year, and that $1 billion goes to funding different projects in Israel, between Israel and the diaspora, and also leadership roles within the WZO in the National Institutions of Israel. The WZO is one of the four national institutions of Israel, along with Jewish Agency, Kakad, and Keren Yesod. And we'll speak about that a little bit more. So that's really the origins. It was founded in 1897 in Basel.
So 1897, Theodor Herzl, before there's a creation of the State of Israel,
Yes.
calls for a World Zionist Congress of the Jewish people. In many respects, this is kind of like as the name implies, a world assembly of delegates who
Yes.
representing the Jewish people around the world, correct?
Yes, it's considered the Jewish parliament. It's the parliament of the Jewish people. It's the democratically elected body of the Jewish people. It's the only platform where Jews, well, right now we're talking about the US, have a way to influence what goes on in Israel and then in diaspora through these elections. And yeah, so it's very important. One thing that I want to add, it's very exciting to see that there's so much interest in the Congress. I mean, I think that's one of the things that happened after October 7th, where people are really out with their Zionism and want to get more involved. And this is a great way to get more involved.
Thank you. So the first one was 1897. I believe this is the, if I'm not mistaken, heard correctly, the 39th election that's being held. And they're held
It,
every 5 years. Is that correct?
Right, so this is the 39th World Zionist Congress. Thank you, Michal and Refuah Shlema, for your laryngitis. Yes, this is the 39th World Zionist Congress. We're in the footsteps of Herzl. There have not been elections for 39 of them. There were different processes where groups in different countries selected delegates to attend from their countries. And so there have been elections in America since 1972. Before that, the American Zionist Council, our predecessor organization, would have a convention of some sort and then the select the delegates. I should mention that even at the first Zionist Congress, there were Americans there. There were 5 Americans who attended the first Zionist Congress, including one woman, Rosa Sonnenschein, who was the president of the National Council of Jewish Women. Women got the right to vote at the second Zionist Congress, was in 1898, which was 20 plus years before women's suffrage movement in America achieved voting in the United States. I think in 1898, only one country, I believe it was New Zealand, allowed women to vote. So the Zionist movement was very progressive on that. There's now a rule of the WZO that 40% of all the delegates have to be women, 25% of all the delegates have to be what the WZO calls the younger generation, meaning age 35 or under. So there have not been elections for all 39, but there have been elections since the 20-something Congress in 1972.
So it's important to understand the people who are are coming to the World Zionist Congress are coming from Israel, as not just the United States, and also elsewhere around the world. Correct, Herb?
Right. So there are, and Avishai has some slides which we'll try to pop in here and there as I
Mhm.
present. There are 525 delegates who are elected from around the world. Um, um, 152 of them, about 30%, come from the United States. About 173, a little more than 30%, come from around the rest of the world, meaning besides Israel, and 190 delegates come from Israel itself. So the delegates that come from Israel are from the Zionist parties that are in the Knesset, and they have representation in the Zionist Congress based on their strength in the Knesset. There is not a separate election held in Israel for the Zionist Congress, but roughly America is about a third of the representation in the world. Other countries besides the United States, and we're obviously the biggest by far, and AZM as the Zionist Federation in the United States conducts the election here. In other countries of the Zionist Federation, may have an election, they may have a convention, and they will, select delegates in different ways. There are about 35 countries in the past that had representation in the Zionist, in the World Zionist Organization through Zionist federations. It's now just recently they added a few new countries, so it's up to 40. I'm not sure all of them will have seats at this upcoming Congress, but there are about 40 countries where there's a significant Jewish population and there's a Zionist federation. Some countries it overlaps with the main Jewish communal body. In some cases, it's a separate Zionist federation.
So I understand, Avishai, are you prepared to show? There's a short video that'll kind of help to amplify and give a little bit of an overview of some of what we're talking about. If you can cue that up, and as that's coming up, let me ready to roll with it whenever you've got it.
So you'll see on the AZM website, azm.org, we have a little explanatory video that explains the election and the role of AZM. It's about a minute and 40, so don't get out too much popcorn. And it's available for all rabbis and others to use on their, in any material or your congregations.
Great. So we're going to take a look now, and hopefully this will help to educate all of us. Let it roll.
We, the Jewish people, share a remarkable story, one of resilience, connection, and action.
Founded over 125 years ago by Theodor Herzl, The World Zionist Congress brings us together every 5 years to shape our shared destiny.
As we face new and continuing challenges, rising anti-Semitism, the scars of October 7th, war in Israel, and questions of community connection, this is our moment to decide what comes next.
Through the Congress, it is determined how over $1 billion is allocated annually to strengthen Jewish identity, enhance communities, and foster education.
It's not just about funding. It's about creating lasting change for generations.
Between March 10th and May 4th, 2025, American Jews will elect 152 delegates, nearly a third of the representatives, to the next Zionist Congress.
With over 20 diverse slates, this is your chance to ensure your values and vision are represented.
Anyone Jewish, 18 or older, who is a U.S. citizen primarily living in America or a permanent U.S. resident can vote.
The election, conducted by the American Zionist movement, costs $5 for registration and processing, an easy step toward a stronger tomorrow.
Visit ZionistElection.org to learn more, register, and vote.
Together, we can write the next chapter of our shared Jewish and Zionist story.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So let's now go over a couple of things here. Herb, can you explain, as I understand it, that and Michal briefly mentioned that there are a number of organizations who are part of the World Zionist Organization. Can you point out who they are, and the things such as the initials we hear all the time? We want to call it Jewish alphabet soup. Things such as the JNF, Kakal, which is Karen Kayemet L'Yisrael, which is we've mentioned AZM. Can you run down some of those, please, that are part, first, just starting just with those that are part of the World Jewish Congress and that are therefore part of the World Zionist Congress, therefore part of the World Zionist Congress election?
So yes, and obviously I will follow along with some screen sharing. So the World Zionist, let me step back to Herzl and where Michal started. In 1897, the first Zionist Congress established the World Zionist Organization to be the body that would continue from that first meeting in August 97 in Basel. And the World Zionist Organization met again at the Zionist Congress in, obviously go back to the slide which shows the three parts of it. Great. Which the Zionist Congress met in, no, there's another slide that had the first one, which had the chart that had the World Zionist Organization met again in 1897. In 1898, and then in ongoing years. There's a chart that shows Kakal and JNF and Jewish Agency as perfect, great. So these in 1901, the Zionist organization formed Karen Kayemet L'Yisrael, the JNF, the Jewish National Fund. The Jewish Agency was created in 1929, somewhere in the 20s. I don't know. I think around 1920 was created Karen HaYesod, which does fundraising around the world. Karen HaYesod is not really known in America because it raises money for Israel and the national institutions in every country except America. In the United States, that's done through the Jewish Federation system. So these bodies, WZO, Jewish Agency, Jaffe, or Sochnut, Karen Kayemet, and JNF, and Karen HaYesod are known as the Mosdot Halumim, the national institutions. For all of those who have been in Israel and know the building at 48 King George Street in Jerusalem, the building with the big circular driveway and entrance on the corner of Rehov Karen Kayemet and King George, where the famous dancing happened the night of partition in Kaftan, November 47. That's the building of the national institutions. Actually happened to be the first building of the government of Israel. Karen Kayemet was the arm to develop and buy the land of Israel The Jewish Agency became the operating arm of the Jewish Yishuv. Keren Hayesod was the fundraising arm. There was also another branch, which was a name we wouldn't necessarily pick today to call it the Jewish Colonial Trust, which later became Bank Leumi, and that was the financing arm of the Zionist movement. And these are the national institutions. The Zionist Congress sets the overall policy and tone and leadership of the institutions. I describe it to people like a political convention, the DNC, the RNC we may be familiar with, where you're gathering together the faithful, firing them up, setting together the platform, bringing together people from all around the world. In this case, not the 50 states, the delegates from all around the world, and saying in America, people as policy. So out of the results of the Zionist Congress elections and the makeup of the Congress, are selected the leaders of these institutions, not just the heads of them, but also the department heads and people who run different programs. As I've said in some media interviews, there's not, unlike it's like a parliamentary election, because in America you're voting for one of 21 different slates. You're voting for a slate, and then they send representatives to the Congress based on their strength and their denominational parties and ideological parties. We can talk about that more later. There's no winners and losers. There's not like a coalition government and an opposition or a shadow government like you have in the UK with a shadow secretary who's, waiting in the wings. Here in the Zionist movement, everybody has a role, maybe greater or lesser depending on your party strength, but everybody has a role in running some aspect of the different institutions. For the alphabet soup, just to finish on that, as you mentioned, the World Jewish Congress, Rabbi Weinblatt, World Jewish Congress is separate. Many people do get it confused. World Jewish Congress is a body of sort of official Jewish communities from around the world that is led now by Ronald Lauder and works on different issues, advocacy based in Europe and in America. The World Jewish Congress is not related, though there are many people who are involved in both. JNF USA, which many are familiar with, has a relationship with Karen Kayemet, but is really a separate entity in America working on its own projects, some of which are done together with Karen Kayemet Kakal, and some of which are separate. The Jewish Federations of North America, as you see JFNA is mentioned here, has significant representation in the Jewish Agency Board and represents the donors and significant financial contributions and philanthropy of American Jews through the federation system in the Jewish Agency. So that's where the American Jewish funding goes, and donations go. If someone donates to the overseas campaign or emergency campaigns in a Jewish federation in one of your cities, that will channel through the JFNA to the Jewish Agency Board. And the WZO has representation in all of them based on the grassroots election. The WZO is really a body that's made up of elected representatives from around the world. People are not on the WZO board just because they're the biggest donor or they, buy their way in through not I'm saying that in a negative way, but through a substantial contribution. These are really people who are activists and involved in different movements. So let me stop there.
Yeah. By the way, the World Zionist Organization, WZO, has been headed by some very famous individuals, some luminaries in the Jewish world. Herb, who are some of the people who have headed the World Zionist Organization, names that we might know, especially in America?
So the World Zionist Organization obviously was founded by Herzl, and in more recent years, Nachum Goldman was the head of it for many years, and the head of the World Jewish Congress at the same time. As a famous name, in recent years, the chairman is now Yaakov Chagoel. Before Natan Sharansky was chair of the WZO and the Jewish Agency. About 10, 15 years ago, there was a formal split that there would be two chairs. It used to be the same person chairing both. So Sharansky was the last chair of both. The Jewish
And
Agency.
prior to becoming president of the state of Israel,
Isaac
I think
Herzog was chair of the Jewish Agency before he was the head of the before he became president of Israel. Salai Meridor chaired both. Zev Bielski, some of these people in the last 20 years or so.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about what then these elections, why they're important. What are they influence? What, in other words, then will they be deciding? The Congress is going to take place in October of this coming year of 2025. The elections go until May. And what are some of the issues then that will be determined? Is it primarily, and the video we saw was talking about the distribution of the $1 billion. Now, what are some of the places where that money could go? The kinds of decisions can be made. And after we talk a little bit about the aspect of the money that is allocated, is that actually determined at the Congress, or is it just guidelines that are given? And are there other issues? And before you answer that, let me ask one other question. Where does that $1 billion come from?
Only rabbis would have questions. The pre-question, before the pre-question, and then the after question. So, and the very Talmudic intertwining here. Okay, so, and I'm a rabbi's son, so I'm well aware of and appreciate joining this group. If I can remember all of them. So the source of funding, there's collectively the budget, and obviously I'll just keep the screen up for a minute. The WZO, the Jewish Agency, Karen Kayemet, Karen Hayesod collectively spend about $1 billion a year, over $1 billion a year. There are some that goes back and forth, but collectively there's over $1 billion. A lot of it comes from, and I don't have the exact numbers at my fingertips. The Karen Kayemet budget is $700 and something million a year. The Jewish Agency is around 400 million. WZO is about 100 million. Karen Hayesod is a couple of hundred million that they raise and allocate. Karen Kayemet gets a lot of its money from the land and the income from the land that it owns in the state. There's significant money that's raised, hundreds of $1 millions a year. There is some government money, and those would be the main sources. The Zionist Congress isn't voting on a line item budget. It's like a political Congress or assembly where they're setting the tone, the platform, the leadership, adopting resolutions, and then electing committees and the department heads. There's the Chaver Ne'amanim, the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency, the Asifa Klalit, the General Assembly of Karen Kayemet, the board of WZO has a Zionist General Council, the Vad HaPoel, which is built actually on the name of the Zionist Actions Committee that Herzl created. And there's different departments. This is some of the names have changed every so often. So there are the different departments, the different committees within the Jewish Agency, and Karen Kayemet will set the budget. If you go back to the other screen, the first one there that had the gray different the institutions, you'll see some of the things that are working that they work on. Obviously, and this is not a comprehensive list, but there are decisions on where supporting shlichim, where they're going, the amount of resources for shlichim around the world and summer camps and year programs. WZO has shlichim. There are allocations for aliyah, for supporting Jewish communities, for security. In Karen Kayemet on land development projects, some of the issues that have come up, and I'm not taking a side on them, are should funds be spent on which side of the green line? Should many of the non-Orthodox streams rely on funding from the national institutions, as they'll state in their campaign materials, because they're not getting funding from the government of Israel itself, so they get money from the national institutions. The Kotel compromise that was created a number of years ago came out of the discussions of the national institutions and then and when Sharansky was the chair. So there are issues of Jewish identity and pluralism, as that some would call it, and others projects that are supported by the institutions. And there have been debates within Karen Kamen, for example, about should funds be spent over the green line or not. So those are some of the policy issues that will be decided. And it's hard to know at any moment what the issues of the day are. Obviously, since October 7th, the national institutions are focused on rehabilitation and rebuilding of communities in the North and the South, not just the physical, but developing the community. So those are some of the issues that are covered.
So I want to ask you a question. That is, there are some 21 parties in this election, and some of them claim that to vote for our party because we're going to advocate for Jewish education, vote for our party because we're going to fight anti-Semitism. How does that play out? How does the World Zionist organization, as manifested through the World Zionist Congress, have an opportunity to get involved or do anything on these issues?
And then I did see a question from one of the
We'll take
before.
questions afterwards. We'll take questions afterwards. Go ahead.
So let me mention one thing. So some people ask, as this is a prelude, why are these national institutions there? You have a state of Israel. Why do we have the Mosdot Ulamim? Why didn't you just fold up in 48 after the state of Israel? And so I answered it two different ways, and it will tie into this. One is that Herzl's vision was not just to, obviously his goal was to create the state of Israel, but after Hakamat Medina in 48 was to, build the Chevra Mofet, the ideal state, to perfect the state and to develop the Jewish state. So that's ongoing. Some of you have participated in the Z3 movement, which talks about the first phase of Zionism until 48, and the second part, in the rebuilding the state in the 20th century, and now we're in the third part of the further development in the 21st century. So the national institutions also do things for the Jewish people in Israel and Jewish communities that the sovereign state of Israel can't do. State of Israel is our homeland, but it's also a sovereign nation state focused on many things: defense and trade and economy and all the things we know that a state does. And it has to do things for all its citizens. There are certain special needs because of our unique relationship with Israel that the state of Israel, wouldn't be able to just send shlichim to Jewish communities and work on Zionist education and do things on Aliyah for Jews only and other things. So therefore, the Zionist institutions, the national institutions, which are quasi-governmental bodies, and they have special status. They're not regular ambutot. They don't, they're have a unique status, serve in that function. And that is in keeping with Herzl's vision that the Zionist movement was also the bridge connecting the Jewish people and the Jewish community around the world with the land and the people of Israel. So it's the bridge, and it's that quasi-governmental role of doing things for Jewish communities around the world, for Am Yisrael, that couldn't be done otherwise. Did I cover your?
Yeah. So in terms of the policy issues, you've touched on that. In terms of the way in which monies then might be allocated, it's in general terms.
So the 21 parties in America, and we can send it out, or they're all on the AZM website, azm.org/elections, or on the zionistelection.org. If you can see it on my roll up here, the website for the election, you can see all of this and a lot of information. Those parties will elect delegates, those that win seats. They'll combine with delegates from around the world. They'll form caucuses, factions, and push for their agenda. Some of them will be policy issues, like a resolution on, certain issues, and others will be electing people in different positions. There was in the last Congress, there was a decision to that the Zionist movement should make special outreach to LGBT community, and just picking one small example, and it was a resolution that there should be a unit set up to reach out to that part of the Jewish community, and that came out of the Congress, and there has been efforts in Zionism in the LGBT community that came out of something that was voted on at the last Congress. That's a small example of something that was a policy, and then the WZO implements it, and many other things. There was an effort to observe Shemitah, which I guess Karen Kayema didn't observe unilaterally or across all projects, and that was something that came out of elections last time, and there were some more Orthodox Haredi parties that pushed for that, and that's another example of something that was a small example of something that said, well, here's a policy that we should implement as a result of the Congress. So what will be, you can see on the different slates and their platforms what they're advocating for. Obviously, they have many different things that they're, someone in diametrical opposition to each other, but they're hoping to achieve results. You'll see here a list of all the slates. We have a directory of slates where you can read if you want to, people have their Shabbos reading pile. If you want to print out all 46 pages and read all the platforms and all the candidates, geh gesund, and you can see them all in one place in a booklet. Or you can click on those slates that are of most interest to you. I know that many of the rabbis in Zionist Rabbinic Coalition are on different slates of their movements or some other slates as well. So obviously you have denominational slates, Artza, Merkaz, and Mizrahi. There's other Orthodox slates and other non-denominational slates. There are ideological slates on the right and the left. There are slates in the Sephardic community, in the Russian community, in the Israeli-American community. So there's really, hopefully a flavor for everyone. There's some slates that are non-aligned, that are general Zionists. So there's a wide range of it. And I do tell people that the diversity of our slates shows the broad range of the Zionist movement and really shows how integrated Zionism is in the ethos of the Jewish community in America. So, for those who attack, Zionists and say, oh, I'm not attacking Jews, you can really see how Zionism and is integrated, and, anti-Zionism is really, an attack, is really a form of anti-Semitism because the wide range of the Jewish community that's part of the Zionist movement.
We've talked about the fact that there are 21 parties. How many were in the previous election 5 years ago?
So in the last election, there were 14 parties that won seats. 15 parties ran. One didn't get enough seats. There's no minimum threshold, but it depends on division. You take the total vote, 123,000 last time divided by 152 delegates. It came up with about 800 votes needed for one seat. So 14 parties won at least one seat. In the last Congress, many people expect more votes this time. I can tell you, and we just sent out to our committee a few minutes ago, you're the first audience to know beyond. As of around noon today, we had 20,000 voters already. And it took us last time in the last election a week to get to that number. We already have that in just over the first day. So there's a lot more interest. There's 21 parties running now. People were more, as Michal mentioned, more engaged after October 7th in Zionism in support of Israel and wanted to have their voice heard. But, even before October 7th, people in America had strong views on the Kotel, on the judicial reform, and many other issues. So there's been a lot of engagement.
Is there anything like judicial reform that would come up in this discussion here?
I mean, there are some issues that, there have been resolutions, and the WZO, will, pass resolutions, Zionist Congress on some issues. At the last Zionist Congress in April of 23, there was a resolution opposing the judicial reform. I mean, obviously, the resolutions in some of those cases are not binding, but they're, advisory about what American Jews believe. You'll see some slum slates, for example, that are saying, vote for us to, for the two-state solution. Vote for us to make sure there never is a two-state solution. Now, obviously, the WZO is not going to determine if there's, one state, two states, or those things. But people in the slate see this as an opportunity to have their Jewish voice heard, or to direct resources as to go back to one of your questions before, and I do want to take questions from everyone here. There are slates that may say, adopt a resolution or have a resolution put through to increase allocations for efforts on campus or to support lone soldiers from around the world, or to increase um, efforts to fight anti-Semitism in communities, or for Jewish community security. So there are platforms of different slates that are advocating for these different positions, and some of which might result in funding depending on their strength, depending on their coalition, and what they can get adopted, at the Congress.
We're going to take the question from the audience and also the one that was sent in. Looked very interesting just a moment. But before we do that, what is the relation? The election is a little similar to election for a Knesset in that you're voting not for an individual but for a slate, and then it's proportional based on how many votes a particular slate gets, then how many delegates they'll have in the conference. Is there is there a relationship between the Knesset and the World Zionist Congress, or any of the policies or decisions that are made?
Yes, and then I'll answer the question, and then go if you want me to go to the question of the chat as well.
Sure.
So yes, it's a parliamentary system, which we're not so familiar with in America. America, you have a win, binary choice, or maybe three candidates in an election. You elect the Democrats, Republicans, sometimes an independent, and you elect someone to office. Here it is a parliamentary system. Unlike, as I said before, it's a coalition government, as it were, but there's no opposition. Everyone gets some part of the action in different ways. If a party in America wins 10% of the vote, they'll get, let's say 15 seats, and then the people on their list, the top 15 delegates would go to the Congress. Sometimes people resign. It may not be exactly the top 15 on the list. There's alternates who can attend, two alternates for each delegate, so those people can attend the Congress as well. So it's a pretty large convention. The Israeli representation is made up based on the Knesset and the strength of the parties in the Knesset. So one of the things on our election, you'll see a checkbox. I did not vote in the last Knesset election, because if someone did vote in the Knesset election, let's say they're a dual citizen or they were living in Israel then and now moved here, then they'd essentially be double dipping, because the Israeli representation is made up based on the Knesset election. So now it's based on the last Knesset election, November 22. If the government were to fall, there'll be another Knesset election by the summer. That would govern the attendance from the Knesset at the Congress. It's not actually Knesset members who attend in most cases. I'm not sure if any, but it's representatives of those parties. So the representatives of Likud, of Shas, of Yesh Atid, or whoever it is, would go to the Congress. Now, in response to the question that was posted by Rachel Blum, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce it right, about Zionist organizations that have delegates. So there are several organizations that send non-elected delegates. And obviously I put up the chart here of organizations for historical reasons that have non-elected delegates. The biggest is Hadassah, and they go to the Congress, but they do not vote in the election of officers, but they do vote on resolutions. I believe they can vote on the policy resolutions, but for historical reasons, and I don't have the whole history, the special organizations, the Irgunim, don't vote for the election of the officers of the Congress or the national institutions.
So that answers the question
on the resolutions.
Thank you. So that's referring to then the question that was asked about these organizations which don't have elections but have representation. Earlier in their call,
Hadassah would be a prime example of that.
Which one would be?
Hadassah is, one that's well known here in America.
Thank you. Good. Earlier, I saw that one of the people here, Susan Kramer, had a question. Susan, do you still have your question? Did you want to ask?
I do. So I've been a communal professional for 30 years, and this is the first election that I'm really like inside of trying to understand. So thank you for really explaining it clearly. This is like the fifth time I've heard, and I get it. Now, there's a conversation out there in the community that there's a lot of money at stake. And some of the people I speak with, it would assume that they're getting the money. So delegates, when you have an elected delegate, the organization where the elected delegate are there financial benefits that they will receive from having their ballot voted on?
I feel like this is passing on the Masorah, Moshe Kibel Torah and Masorah Ali
Please,
Yeshua.
please pass on the Torah,
Pass
please.
it on to you, and you can pass it on to other people.
Yeah.
I know it's not the easiest thing for everyone to understand, and it's a little bit of an arcane system. But it's as someone described it, from one of the Jewish federations, it said it's, someone asked if they get involved, and there was senior professional said it's quirky but important. The organizations, like the movements, the streams, will get some funding for their own operations based on the strength of what they get. Now, I do not know exactly all the ins and outs of how that's calculated and how much money for the reform movement, the conservative, Orthodox, different religious, different ideological streams, but the world unions that are here will get some funding for their operations, depending on their strength in the Congress. And I think it's, some allocation per delegate. I mean, it's not like the delegates themselves get paid, though they get their flight and trip covered, but there's, the organizations themselves will get support for their ongoing efforts as a result of the Congress. That's different, it's a small piece of having a seat at the table on the allocation of the overall billion. And again, that's through different committees at the Jewish Agency, at WZO, and at Kakao.
Thank you. Great. So this is, again, very helpful in terms of helping to understand. We talk about who's eligible to vote. You have to be over the age of 18. You've got to be declare yourself as Jewish. If I'm not mistaken, also you have to accept the Jerusalem program. What is the Jerusalem program?
So you'll see on our website, or obviously I can pull it up, the requirements for the election. I mean, the election is fundamentally an honor system, but we hope Jews are honorable and trustworthy. You have to be over 18, or actually 18 or over by June 30th of this year. You have to be Jewish and not subscribe to another religion. Obviously, it's your definition of how to answer that question for someone to vote. You have to be a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident and maintain your primary residence in the United States, and agree and I'm not voted in the last Knesset election, and agree to the Jerusalem program, the Tochnit Yerushalayim. It's the platform of the Zionist movement. Originally, the Basel platform of 1897, updated a couple of times, and you'll see it on the scrolling here. It's on the AZM website. It's on our voting page. Anyone who votes has to, at least look at it on their screen and agree to it. It's the platform of the Zionist movement. It's stating your belief in the core values of the Zionist movement. And it says on our website, the Jerusalem program, the platform of the Zionist movement. So if someone doesn't want to agree to that and says, these are not my beliefs, then they shouldn't vote. And obviously, if someone's an anti-Zionist or non-Zionist, they probably wouldn't agree with this and want to vote on, check that box. And so, you have to check off different things that you're answering as honestly and truthfully as you can, before voting. Obviously, there is a $5 fee. The election's open yesterday, goes till May 4th. The $5 fee helps confirm that people are actually themselves and voting once. It's not like the baseball all-star ballot where you can vote 25 times a day from 15 emails you may create for your favorite team. This is one person, one vote for the election, one time. So we can verify individuals, and you do that kind of verification. Other things are essentially on an honor system that hopefully people are being trustworthy and voting accordingly.
Herb, people were able to register to vote before the election process began, which started yesterday. Can someone who hasn't registered to vote still register to vote and go ahead. Like when regular elections, you have to register it in advance here in America. Is
So
that the case for here or not?
that is the case here. And we yes, you go on the website, zionistelection.org, you register, you pay your fee. I mean, you check the boxes
But you can still
accordingly.
register. Like my point is, if you haven't yet registered, you can still
Yes,
register to vote.
you register and vote instantly, and you can vote until May 4th. The pre-registration was really just for those who are running as delegates or signing a petition to enable a new slate to run. But you register and vote. As I said, there were 30 something thousand people have registered, 20,000 voted as of noonish today. And there was a little bit of there was a technical glitch here or there. Some of you may have experienced when this sort of system overload yesterday, but we're very happy that so many people are participating. And everyone doesn't have to rush to vote today. This voting runs until May 4th. It
And
was
then
designed
again,
to start before Purim and go through a little past Yom HaAtzmaut to include those days and when people have events and and outreach.
and then once the voting is over, how long do you anticipate before results will be in? How will they be?
So
How will we know the results? Are you publicizing them?
there are paper ballots that people can fill out for those who don't want to vote online, and they're available on our website to download and mail in. We have an independent company that runs the election and counts all of the online and paper votes. So it could take us up to 2 weeks for all the tabulation of. Obviously, the online will have immediately, but in the past we've released all the numbers at one time that included the those who voted on paper ballots.
So there's no such thing right now as exit polling or anything like that. In other words, you're
Um,
not people
Some
know how
states are
many.
doing their own exit polls to find out how many people voted, but we don't have any exit polls. There's nobody standing outside a shul, with a clipboard and doing exit polls in that sense, like you would at the polling place.
Great, great. And then so let's just
Yes,
summarize.
we'll send some slides to everybody. So,
Thank you. And then just to wrap things up and summarize a little bit. First of all, anything that people should know that hasn't been covered yet? I want to just touch on that for a moment. I think we've gone over the history and the nature of it and so on. But was there anything else that you wanted to add, her, before we conclude our call?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of the issues and the questions you sent in advance. My colleague Avishai Infeld is here, and you've seen him. We can share his email and send out something as well. We'll send out some of the slides. Avishai is also a rabbi's son. We don't just hire rabbis' sons at AZM, but it happens to be. And
Until the
we,
DEI people get load of this.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
know. And many people think they write to me as Rabbi Block because in my name Herb in Hebrew they write a Hey Reish Bet, and in Israel, and I'll get an email someone dear Rabbi Block. But Avishai is our election coordinator in our office and can help you or others with materials. Obviously, many of you are involved with different slates or streams. But if you want general material that's sort of neutral, parv, about action, we can provide all that as well.
So again, to summarize, the easiest way somebody wants to go online to either find out about the slates and or to register to vote and or to actually vote, just keeping it simple, would it be just azm.org? And then
The
from there,
easiest is to go to zionistelection.org.
zionistelection.org. Okay.
That's to vote, and you'll see all the slates there. If you go to the AZM website, you can also see our video, a toolkit of resources and everything, and there's clearly marked redirects to go to the voting site. So if you want a lot of information, first go to the AZM website. If you want to vote and also see all the slates, you can go to the zionistelection.org.
Thank you very much.
And one thing I'd like to add is, as Arb said, that a lot of the Congress sets policies, for example, let's say to do more work with the LGBTQ community or on religious pluralism, or to do more with the Haredi community. And a lot of that work is then done through the departments of the WZO. We have the 14 departments. I mean, as I said before, the heads are elected through the Congress. And there are a lot of resources and a lot of different programs that we offer, that I work with the different departments to offer to organizations and leaders in the North American Jewish community, whether it's ceremonies for October 7th, whether it's exhibits, whether it's seminars, workshops in Zionism. And we're going to soon have a website that will actually be a place that will have all this information. But I'm happy to also send, I don't know, through you, Rabbi Weinblatt, maybe some of the resources that we do offer for the upcoming Yamim. And just in general to be in touch, because we have a lot, and I think that's also one thing that we're looking to get out more through you, Rabbi.
Terrific. Well, again, this call is
And
presented. Go ahead, Herb.
I want
Yeah.
to add that we're very proud that the ZRC is a member organization of the AZM, and we helped it in its inception
Right.
to collect some of the funds and initial setup of the ZRC. So we've been had Rabbi Weinblatt speak at different events. So we're grateful that that you are here, and I echo what Michal suggested for the resources of the WZO and the different departments, and happy that it's an important group to be in the American Zionist movement.
Thank you so much. It's our part of our raison d'etre. The Zionist Rabbinic Coalition will be posting this call on our website. It's very easy, zionistrabbis.org. We invite anyone who would like to be able to share that with their members or constituents. Just give us a little while to edit this. Make sure nothing obscene was said. I'm just kidding. But we want to just be able to put it out on our website so that people can see it. And again, our purpose is to try and let people know, not to take a position, but rather to make sure that we have as many people participate in these important elections, and that the voice of the Jewish people is heard. So that's part of what the AZM is about. That's part of what the election is about, and also the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition. So we wish everyone a shalom, and also shalom al Yisrael, peace for the people and the state and country of Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for being on.
Thank you.
Okay.